Hey guys, MisterTNA here with a brand new video for you. The first in over 2 weeks from me. Last week I didn't produce a video, as well as not having any presence on Twitter or on the TNA Asylum comment section, because I was away for the week. Went away for the week, only decided to go away a few weeks ago. Went away for the week. Nice little break. I was ill for several days though, but regardless, that was the reason why I didn't produce a video last week. As for the week before, I was busy creating a column that you may or may not have read on TNA Asylum. It is the first in the series of a little series that I'm going to be doing called Behind the Curtain. Behind the Curtain is going to be my written series of columns, while what you're listening to right now, MisterTNA Talks, is my audio column series. I'll put a link in the description below for the first edition of Behind the Curtain, so you can, if you haven't already read it, you can feast your eyes on it now. As well as creating a new column and series for TNA Asylum, I am now one of the several new writers for TNAasylum.com. I'm very happy about that. I've done several guest columns in the past. I've done all sorts. I've done reviews, opinion columns. I even for a short time had my own MisterTNA's Impact Wrestling booking series, where I was booking TNA a couple of months in advance to present date. That didn't last long, because for me, and it kind of got confusing and hard to write after seeing different things pan out on television. But regardless, it happened, and now they, along with the MisterTNA Talks audio series, have laid the foundations for me to become an official writer for TNA Asylum. I'd like to thank everyone at TNA Asylum for welcoming me into the family, if you will, of the writers. Also, like to thank each and every one of you for listening to the MisterTNA Talks audio column series, and I hope you continue to as well. And I hope you also can begin to follow the Behind the Curtain series at TNA Asylum. Not only, before I move on to the topic, not only am I doing an official writer now for TNA Asylum, I am also currently contributing to a round table column that will be appearing in, I was told, 2 weeks, on TNAswerve.com, which is a website about, it's a TNA and OVW fan site created by one of the founders of TNA Asylum, Chris Regal, or to some of TNA Asylum readers that do not follow him on Twitter and know him, and only will know him by Shelbin. Chris asked me a couple of weeks ago if I'd like to contribute, and I said absolutely. So make sure that you follow and support TNA Swerve as well. It's a good website. It's also a site supported by TNA Asylum, because as I say, all the writers there, all the commenters and everything, they're all one big family really. And all the support to Chris with TNA Swerve. And if he ever needs anything from me, I'll be sure to help him out, and be sure to visit TNA Swerve as well. I'll put a link. Usually, I put a link into TNAasylum.com in the description below. I will put a link to TNA Swerve as well, so you can go ahead and check it out and see for yourself. Now, after that long, ridiculous introduction of me plugging websites and myself and my columns and all that stuff, let's get into the main juicy, gory bit that you clicked on this video, or you clicked on this link to see. And it is, well, in this case here, it's for me to be talking about a new topic. And this week's topic is TNA wrestling going on the road. TNA taking their cameras, their big lighting, going out the Impact Zone, onto the road, filming editions of Impact Wrestling in arenas in front of paying fans and larger crowds than the Impact Zone, as well as going out and filming live pay-per-view events on the road as well. So this is a topic that has been more and more talked about probably in the last year. Ironically, in the last year as well. This time last year, TNA announced that they were doing a road taping in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It was only the second time they've ever done a TV taping out the Impact Zone and on the road. Since that first one that they've done in 4 years, 3 or 4 years, we've had 5 road tapings, and in that same time we have had only 2 or we've got the 3rd scheduled pay-per-view event on the road out of the Impact Zone since that announcement about the Impact tapings going on the road. And a lot of people have been saying that since 2009, where we had 4 pay-per-views on the road, dropped to 2 in 2010, kept at 2 for 2011, hopefully will increase to at least 3 this year, that pay-per-views going on the road will suffer more and be less likely because of now TNA focusing on Impact Wrestling, their weekly television program, going on the road instead. So, what really is the issue behind all of this? The issue really behind more and more fans wanting TNA to go on the road is because of the infamous Impact Zone. The Impact Zone is a sound studio that has been modified and created to be a wrestling arena, and I put that in invisible imaginary brackets when I say arena. It has a 1,300 people capacity, and really has died off a lot since its inception back in 2004. More and more people are seeing that obviously the crowds are getting quieter, not into the product as much as they used to be, and it's really hurting the product, and that's honest. I know people that go to the Impact Zone. Hopefully they're watching this video like they do every other video. Well, I hope they watch every other video, but I'll leave that one for now. They enjoy going to the Impact Zone, but unfortunately, as I've said to them as well as others, a handful of passionate fans doesn't drown out the 8 or 9, the over 1,000 tourists that are there that just aren't engaged in the product or anything to do with it. So, after seeing this and seeing how the crowds were really loud at the beginning of 2010 when Hulk Hogan joined, and gradually they've dropped off and gone quieter, and everything about the Impact Zone, there's the same old building every week. The fact that unfortunately TNA production has had to put in loads and loads of piped crowd noise for Impact Wrestling, which unfortunately they can't cover up when it's on live pay-per-view. I'll give you an example here. Go back and watch the James Storm vs. Kurt Angle match from Final Resolution 2011. The match was good, but if the crowd had got into it and made a bit of noise, then the match could have probably been given a great, because the crowd right now, the size of the crowd and the loudness of the crowd it's starting to take a serious toll on the product. So more and more TNA fans are saying, listen, you need to get out on the road, and you need to do it soon, because it's getting ridiculous. You know, it could be said that it's putting people off watching TNA. I don't know if there's any evidence or anything to support that, but it's a possible thing. It just makes the product look worse than it is. And right now, my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions, TNA is producing the best wrestling, all-around wrestling product that there is right now. They've got great storylines, great pacing of shows, good booking of shows, good matches, good promos, you know, everything that you want from a wrestling show. TNA right now are ticking every box, and unfortunately, the one thing that they aren't ticking is the crowd, and that kind of sucks. So TNA right now is kind of being dampened down because of the Impact Zone crowd, and the solution needs to be them going on the road. So what can TNA do? What strategy can TNA do to go on the road? First things first, we've seen it more recently. It stood out when Lockdown 2011 location was announced, when it was in a big arena, in a big city, that TNA are now seemingly shifting the focus of their pay-per-view events, well, pay-per-view locations, to big arenas in big cities. When we look at it in 2011, we've had tapings, the TV tapings in 2011 were in places like Fayetteville, North Carolina, Huntsville, Alabama, Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a respectably big-ish city, and Macon, Georgia. We'll exclude the London tapings from this little bit now. On the other hand, for the pay-per-views that went on the road, Lockdown was in a big city like Cincinnati, while Bound for Glory was in Philadelphia. Now, the first thing that TNA need to say when they look at where they're going to tape TV and where they're going to film pay-per-view is, what sort of locations are they looking for? If TNA are going to go on the road with their pay-per-views, they've got to go in big cities. You know, we've seen it in the past before where TNA aren't going to Los Angeles, California, they're going to Irvine. They're not going to Boston, Massachusetts, they're going to Lowell, Massachusetts. They're not going to Chicago, Illinois, they're going to Huffman Estates, Illinois. You know, and I think now they really need to start targeting those cities with the huge populations within them and start hitting away at the promotion, and the crowds are going to be bigger. As for Impact Wrestling on the road, I would like TNA to look at a more intimate feel to Impact Wrestling. You know, for me, pay-per-views, for us Brits, luckily we don't have to pay money for pay-per-views in a weird and ironic way. But thankfully, thanks to TNA Challenge, that's the case. When you look at pay-per-views, it's the only time you've got 3 hours and you've got no commercial interruptions. It is the time where you're getting direct money from fans to watch the show. It is usually the time when it's on the road where the big staging comes out, the pyro comes out, when the good lighting comes out, and the memorable moments come out. And it's when you get all those shots of two guys in the ring and looking round and seeing loads and loads of seats from as far as you can see being filled by loud TNA fans. What I think TNA should do when they take Impact Wrestling on the road is firstly look at the Fayetteville taping. One of the best things, in my opinion, one of the best tapings that TNA did on the road in 2011 was Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it was all in Knoxville, Tennessee. They were on par with each other. Macon, Georgia was the bottom because it didn't have to get that big of a crowd. Regardless of the memorable moments, there were too many empty seats and stuff in it. It presented a challenge to the camera crew and production team of where they can shoot certain areas and stuff. And Huntsville was good, but it wasn't a strong crowd, to say the least. The reason Fayetteville and Knoxville were good because there were fans from one point that went right round to the other side. You know, all the seats in like the lower bowl in the Crown Coliseum in Fayetteville, and all the seats in the Knoxville Civic Center in Knoxville, Tennessee, were pretty much filled. You know, and I think TNA should target that and start looking at that and saying, well, we can go to these, you know, little cities or towns or whatever, you know, because if we have, I mean, for example, one of TNA's strongholds is Pikeville, Kentucky. If TNA ever did a pay-per-view in Pikeville, Kentucky, people would go, well, that's not a very big city. That in the, you know, that's not known at all, is it really? Let's be fair. TNA, though, on the other hand, could go there with their TV show. Don't have to have a massive arena. Fill it up. Give it an intimate feel where there's people all around. You know, it's quite, I mean, with the Fayetteville tapings, TNA used half of the Crown Coliseum. And honestly, in my opinion, that worked. Because there wasn't, you know, the usual stretch section that you get where you've got the stage on one side and the seating directly across from the staging, just behind the ring. You know, there's usually long stretches of seats back there before you start getting to the raised seating. With the Fayetteville tapings, it was about 6 or 7 rows of that, and then it was, you know, the elevated seating, and I thought that was brilliant. I also thought, you know, it was unfortunate that they didn't put lighting on the hard camera side, because there was people in those 2 or 3 sections that was next to the hard camera and the production, the little production pit that they'd set up in the Crown Coliseum. I think if TNA look at that and say, let's give a TV taping its own identity from the pay-per-views. Let's, you know, if we go to an arena that's like 8,000, let's cut the arena in half, keep all the fans that show up near to the ring, near to the action, so there's no one far away and everything. You know, we can all get them on TV, and, you know, another good thing from that is, you know, the crowd noise. It's going to be a lot easier to be picked up by the mics that they use to record the crowd noise that comes across on TV. It's going to be a lot easier to record when they're like all in an intimate area than being in a full arena where it's stretched out and the fans only, there's like 1,000 or 2,000 fans that are so far away from the hard camera. They're hard to see when there's camera shots at the side of the ring because they're not really well lighted, and they're also hard to hear. You know, they could be the loudest fans, but they're hard to hear on TV. Another thing that I think TNA should do when they take Impact Wrestling on the road is don't have a ramp for Impact tapings. I would have never mentioned this. I was not going to mention this in this video until this past Thursday when I watched the shows that came from London. You know, I came back off of holiday. I didn't know what happened. I went away the Saturday morning before the taping, I came back, Impact Wrestling had already aired. I went on the internet. I didn't know what sort of staging they used, any matches that happened, how many people were there, anything like that. And I clicked on and I started watching this on a website, and there was no staging. There was no rampway or anything. And it was just a little catwalk. And to be quite honest, after seeing a ramp in TNA for years and years, I loved the catwalk. When I say about creating an intimate feel for the for the TV show, that's another thing that's intimate. Because now fans can, any fan that's sat on the front row, and I mean anywhere from the very first seat that you can get next to the usual staging that goes right round down to the bottom, right around the ring, and then comes back up to the other side. Now they can shout abuse or cheer or try and get a high five off one of the wrestlers. And I think that's another cool thing that TNA could incorporate to giving Impact Wrestling a more intimate feel, which would come across well on television. Also, I'd not have a ramp for another reason, because of the close-up camera that they used this past Thursday on Impact and this coming Thursday on Impact, which followed wrestlers down to the ring. I think that was absolutely brilliant. Now, I know that there's some question that they used this camera because they could get away with it because both sides were filled, and usually TNA can't fill two sides of an arena, whatever. But the thing is, with the camera angles, you could work around that, and you could feature. If you only filled one side and you got round to so far a bit, and then you had to, darken it and not put people in those seats, then you could use your camera angles, and then you could feature those guys as they walked. There were some great shots on Impact of wrestlers walking down the catwalk, seeing their facial expressions as they walk into the ring, and at the same time seeing the reaction that the crowd's giving them. Ones I can remember were guys like James Storm, Bully Ray, Bobby Roode, and Hulk Hogan. They were just, it added more to the feel of these guys were over and everything. So I think if TNA goes on the road with Impact, they should really look at making it a more intimate feel, as well as if they make it a more intimate feel and use half an arena and fill that half up. I'm not saying they can't say, well, we filled half the arena up already, why don't we go back a bit, and add another section and see if we can sell any more tickets. Because if, say for example, they go back to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and they use the same amount of the arena they used in back in February 2011, and they sell them out pretty quickly, and there's a lot of demand for more tickets. I'm not saying that you can't move the curtain that splits off the arena back so you add another section, because if you do, then feel free to. And then also that will help with the close-up camera, which I think could become an exclusive shot for the Impact Wrestling television show. For pay-per-views, keep it normal camera that's just looking at them on stage and then follows them down the ramp. I think the close-up camera would be awesome to have as an Impact Wrestling exclusive thing when they're on the road, at least. I don't think that they should use the close-up camera when they're in their Impact Zone. Also, with that, you don't have to use all the big lighting and all the big staging and everything for the weekly television show, because let's be fair, last week's Impact, there was a screen, and in front of it was a production team with a pair of lights and the hard camera, and that didn't affect it at all. So, to be honest, that a stage, they don't need the 3 raising screens or anything like that. Also, you don't need the massive lighting section that goes behind the screens when they raise. I mean, you could really get away with using one screen that's elevated from the floor, and then in the center of the catwalk, well, the center of the curtain, the tunnel that they used back at Bound for Glory in 2009. It was 3 steel, like, domed over pieces, and then there was a couple of lights on it as well as long lighting. And I thought that tunnel was really, if you go back and watch Bound for Glory 2009 and look at the tunnel on the stage, imagine that not on a ramp and in the center of the staging. I think that would really work really well as well. As for pay-per-views going on the road, I think that TNA, that's when the big staging should come out, when the ramp should come out, when all just to give it a different feel and give it a bigger feel. And that's when they should be trying to use all of the arena instead of half or like 3/5 of an arena or whatever. It's just the little things that would give it a different feel and everything, because pay-per-views, you want to see big crowds, you want to see the arena in all its glory, but then for Impact, you want to see like the fans going wild, and you want to bring it across on TV as to people like just casual fans watching while they're doing a show here out of the Impact Zone, and from what I can see, it's full. And all these fans are having a good time, and you can hear the noise that they're making and everything for the wrestlers and stuff. So that really adds to the weekly product. And then as for the big staging and using a lot more of the arena, that adds as well to the pay-per-views. Now, another thing that TNA should be looking at more is, if they're going to go on the road with pay-per-views, I think at least next year we should see them going on the road with at least 4 pay-per-views, maybe even 6. And they should be looking at going at big cities. Right now, TNA going on the road for TV tapings not only should be looking at smaller, like, hotbeds of TNA fans, like, as we said, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Pikeville, Kentucky, maybe a stop in a small Texas town or city or whatever, but they should also be looking at going international. Just last week we had a TV taping in London, and I mean that's absolutely brilliant. If you're going to go on a tour and you're going to do really good business, then by all means, if you can afford it and you can pull it off, do a TV taping, because it will just add to the television product. And I think next year that maybe TNA will look at maybe adding or moving a show that's in the Maximum Impact 2013 schedule to the Sunday, and on the Saturday having a Maximum Impact show that goes worldwide, including in the United States on Spike, on tape delay a few hours after it's filmed in London, and a 3-hour show where it's like a pay-per-view style show with limited commercials and everything, and where it can be like classed as the biggest wrestling event on free TV, of the year. And then do a 2-week taping the night after in like Manchester or Glasgow or Nottingham or whatever. And I think TNA should be looking more into, like, when they go on their international tours and when they do well in certain locations, to try and arrange to get a TV taping in that country. I mean, for example, we've seen the success Rinka King. It's only been airing 2 weeks now, and we've seen the success it's getting so far in India and all the press and everything. And I think that if TNA's ratings are starting to boost because they're seeing these guys on Rinka King, and then they're seeing them pop up in advert commercials for TNA, TNA should do an Indian tour, and then maybe talk to Endemol, who produce Rinka King, provide all the filming and lighting and everything, to arrange a deal where they go to the arena that they film Rinka King in and film 2 editions of Impact Wrestling in front of a fairly loud, it's safe to say, they're coming across on TV, a fairly loud crowd in India. Also, they should be looking at going to Mexico. The relationship with AAA right now is strong. As I mentioned before in my video talking about TNA and AAA, they could do a AAA Scene Limit taping, and afterwards do a taping of Impact Wrestling. And they could do this once, maybe twice a year, you know, and that's really another month wiped out the way when it comes to going on the road with Impact Wrestling. So those are the, you know, the differences that they can, you know, the real edits that they can do. You know, with Impact Wrestling they can go international and get big crowds, and then when they're in the United States, go to smaller places, you know, like TNA hotbeds. They should really focus on going to the best drawing places that they can, that, you know, isn't a big city. I mean, if it's a big city and it's a good draw, take a pay-per-view there. If it's not a big city and it's a good draw, take a TV taping there. You know, only use like half of an arena or something. Make sure that you fill right around all the seats that you do use. Make it as intimate as possible. You know, just have a catwalk instead of a walkway on the floor instead of a rampway. You know, you don't need to have staging. You can cut down on costs that you would spend usually on a ramp and the lighting that goes at the side, that goes up at the sides of the ramp. You could cut back on what staging you use. You know, you wouldn't have to use the elevating screens and the little steel tower things that go at the side of it that hold some lighting. You wouldn't have to use the massive screen, well, the massive lighting system that goes behind the screens, whereas, you know, I think there's hundreds of lights that flash for each wrestler, like in a certain colour pattern and stuff. You know, and really, you know, instead use like a steel tunnel. You know, just all sorts of little things. And then for the pay-per-views, rampways, lighting, using big arenas, going to big cities, having big staging, having loads of pyro and stuff, and just going on the road for a pay-per-view event different to going on the road for an Impact Wrestling taping. Because in 2011, if you watched footage of a show that had those 3 raising screens, you know, and it was out of an arena, as out of the Impact Zone, you probably wouldn't be able to identify it because they all look the same. You know, I mean, it would look the same for the Impact tapings, but let's be fair, most weekly television programs do look the same, but the only difference is the arena, which some people might not pick up on as being any different. So what I think TNA needs to do is focus on right now to do is, if they have a deal with Spike where Spike are going to give money to TNA to do several tapings on the road, they should definitely do that. While they keep churning in money for Universal Studios for doing pay-per-views there, I think they should definitely look at taking at least 4 pay-per-views in 2013 on the road. There's still a chance they could take at least 4 on the road in 2012. There's still a chance that they could take all their pay-per-views permanently on the road in 2012, you know, over the next few months. So that's my thoughts on TNA going on the road. You know, just ways how to make it different. Maybe save a bit of money when it comes to Impact tapings. And, you know, all little ingredients that would really make for some great television that TNA will be producing. Thanks for listening. Of course, once again, like the video, click the like button, favourite it if you want to see it on a regular basis and have it in a playlist. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you know when I've uploaded a new video. Follow me on Twitter at MisterTNA so you know everything that's happening. Also, you'll also see when I release new editions of Behind the Curtain. Check out TNAasylum.com. Go and have a look at TNAswerve.com. Do all the things that I tell you to do. I'm not a dictator, but be sure to check them out because those 2 sites that I just mentioned are really good. Follow me on Twitter as well because I like having followers and be able to communicate with you guys and hear some of the things that you think I should talk about in an upcoming video, or what you think on a past video or this video even. Comment in the comment section below. We always enjoy a little debate anywhere we are. thank you very much for listening once again. Enjoy your day, enjoy your week, and you shall be hearing from me soon. Thank you very much.